The whisper didn't come again. That was the worst part. Not the scream. Not the storm clawing against the castle windows. The silence after. Because silence inside Moonfang Castle usually meant one thing. Someone had already died. I stood frozen beside the bed while the wind pushed through the half-open curtains. My heartbeat sounded too loud, too human, too weak. And somewhere beyond the endless stone corridors of the palace, metal scraped against stone. Slowly, like chains being dragged across the floor. My wolf rose instantly beneath my skin. Alert, uneasy, afraid. That frightened me more than the sound itself. Because wolves sense danger long before humans did. And mine. I wanted to run. Another flash of lightning illuminated the room. For a second, I saw scratches across the bedroom door. Fresh scratches. Deep enough to tear through solid oak. My stomach tightened. Those marks hadn't been there before. Then I noticed something else. Mud. Dark wet footprints leading across the floor. Not entering the room. Leaving it. Kale's footprints. But there was something wrong with them. The steps were uneven. Heavy. As if he'd been dragging something. Or someone. Thunder exploded overhead. And suddenly, another sound echoed through the hallway. A woman sobbing. Not loudly this time. Quiet. Broken. The kind of crying that came after someone stopped hoping. I stepped toward the door before my courage disappeared. The corridor beyond was empty. But the torches along the walls were extinguished. One by one. As though something had passed through the hallway swallowing the fire itself. The castle servants always relit them before midnight. Always. Moonfang soldiers feared darkness. Because darkness inside this kingdom carried stories. Old stories. Forbidden stories. Stories about the West Tower. I tightened my robe around my body and walked forward slowly. The castle felt different tonight. Too still. Like it was listening. Portraits of dead Alpha Kings watched from the walls as I passed. Massive men with silver eyes and expressions carved from violence. But tonight, their faces looked almost warning. As if they knew where I was going. As if they were trying to stop me. Halfway down the corridor, I heard footsteps. I turned sharply. Nothing. But the feeling remained. Someone was following me. Watching me. Breathing behind me. I walked faster. The whisper returned. Closer this time. Luna. I spun around. Empty hallway. My breathing became uneven. Because I recognized the voice now. I had heard it before. Not tonight. Months ago. On the night Kale married me. The memory slammed into me violently. The blood moon ceremony. The entire kingdom is kneeling. Kale placed the black iron crown on my head. And then, right before he touched me, a woman screaming somewhere deep beneath the castle. Everyone heard it. No one reacted. Not the servants. Not the guards. Not even Kale. As though the scream was normal. As though it happened often. At the time, I convinced myself I imagined it. Now I realized the horrifying truth. I hadn't imagined anything. The woman had been there all along. Locked inside the West Tower. And somehow, everyone in the kingdom knew except me. A sudden gust extinguished the final torch behind me. Darkness swallowed the corridor instantly. Then, growling. Low. Animals. Right beside my ear. I froze. Every instinct inside me screamed not to move. Slowly, I turned my head. Nothing stood there. But claw marks appeared across the stone wall beside me. Fresh. Invisible claws carving into solid rock. My wolf whimpered. Not from fear. Recognition. Something ancient lived inside this castle. Something powerful. Something angry. Then the growling stopped. And from the end of the corridor, a figure appeared. Tall. Motionless. A royal guard. At least, that was what I thought at first. Until lightning illuminated his face. His throat had been torn open. Blood covered his armor. His silver eyes were completely black. Dead black. Yet somehow, he was still standing. My body went cold. The dead guard lifted one trembling arm slowly and pointed directly toward the West Tower. Then his mouth opened. Not naturally. Too wide. Far too wide. And in a voice that sounded like multiple people speaking at once, he whispered, "She's awake." The corpse collapsed instantly. I stumbled backward in horror. My breathing shattered. Because dead wolves did not stand. Dead wolves did not speak. And yet, he had. Another scream erupted from the tower. Louder this time. Agonized. Desperate. But underneath the screaming, I heard something worse. A roar. Deep. Violent. Inhuman. The roar of something is no longer fully wolf. And suddenly, I realized the terrifying possibility. The woman inside the tower might not be the creature trapped in there. It might be Kale. That night, I made a decision that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my husband. The castle clock struck midnight slowly. 1, 2, 3. Each bell echoed through Moonfang Castle like a warning. Kale rose from the bed without speaking. No goodbye. No glance in my direction. Just silence. Cold practice silence. I kept my breathing steady as he fastened the black leather straps around his wrists. The same straps he wore every night before disappearing. At first I thought they were ceremonial. Now, I realized they were restraints. His movements were tense tonight. Sharp. Almost irritated. Like something inside him was struggling to get out. Then I noticed it. Blood. Fresh blood beneath his fingernails. My stomach tightened instantly. Kale noticed my stare. For one brief second, our eyes met. And I swear, fear flashed across his face. Not fear of me. Fear that I had finally started noticing things. Then he pulled his gloves on, covering the blood immediately. Go back to sleep, Lyra. His voice sounded exhausted. Not angry. Worse. Haunted. I watched him leave the room. The moment the door shut, the warmth disappeared with him. And for the first time since becoming Luna, I followed my husband, barefoot, silent, careful not to let the floorboards betray me. Kale moved through the castle like a man familiar with darkness. He never carried a torch, never looked behind him, almost as though he knew nobody would dare follow. And maybe nobody ever had. Not until tonight. The deeper we moved into the castle, the stranger things became. Entire hallways stood empty. No servants. No guards. No sound except distant thunder and Kale's slow footsteps. Then, I noticed the smell. Iron. Heavy iron. Blood. Old blood soaked into ancient stone. My wolf growled uneasily, because blood carried memory. And these walls remembered death. Kale stopped suddenly near the lower east corridor. I hid behind a pillar instantly. Seconds passed. Silence. Then he spoke. Quietly. To someone I couldn't see. Has she eaten? A guard answered nervously. No, Your Majesty. A long pause followed. Then Kale asked the question that made my skin crawl. Did she speak again? The guard hesitated. Too long. Kale's voice dropped dangerously. Answer me. The guard swallowed hard. She keeps repeating the same sentence. Another silence. Then, what sentence? The guard's face visibly paled. Even from a distance I saw sweat forming along his neck. And when he finally answered, his voice shook. She says the moon goddess is waking up. The hallway went dead silent. Kale didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then slowly, very slowly, he turned his head toward the darkness behind him. Toward me. My heart stopped, because there was no possible way he could have heard me. And yet, his silver eyes locked directly onto the pillar where I hid. Predatory. Unnatural. Ancient. For one horrifying second, I thought he could smell my fear. Then, a scream exploded somewhere deep inside the castle. Not human. Not a wolf. Something in between. The sound was so violent the torches flickered. The guard staggered backward immediately, terrified. But Kale closed his eyes, as if the scream physically hurt him. Then something impossible happened. Blood trickled from his nose. Just one drop. Dark red against pale skin. The Alpha King wiped it away instantly before the guard noticed. But I saw it. And suddenly, I understood something no one in the kingdom dared say aloud. King Kale was hiding weakness. No, not a weakness. Decay. Something inside him was getting worse. The scream came again. Closer this time. The castle walls trembled softly. Dust rained from the ceiling. And far beneath the floorboards, I heard chains rattling. Massive chains. The kind used to restrain monsters. Kale opened his eyes slowly. The silver inside them had begun to glow. Not normally. Violently. Like moonlight burning beneath his skin. Then he gave an order that changed everything. Seal the West Tower. The guard froze. Your Majesty. Kale stepped closer. The air itself seemed heavier around him now. More dangerous. No one enters tonight. The guard nodded immediately and rushed away. But before Kale turned, he whispered something under his breath. So quietly I almost missed it. Please survive until dawn. My blood ran cold. Because kings did not beg. Especially not Kale. And whatever waited inside the West Tower. Even the Alpha King feared losing control of it. Or worse, becoming it. The room smelled like silver. Not perfume. Not medicine. Burned silver. The kind used to torture wolves. The moment I stepped inside the chamber, my wolf recoiled violently beneath my skin. Every instinct screamed at me to leave. But I couldn't move. Because King Kale, the most feared alpha in the north, was kneeling before a chained woman like a man begging forgiveness from a ghost. Lightning flashed through the tower windows. For 1 second, the entire chamber illuminated. And I saw everything. The chains wrapped around the woman's wrists weren't ordinary restraints. Ancient runic markings had been carved into the silver itself. Moon symbols. Blood symbols. Royal symbols. This wasn't imprisonment. This was containment. The woman lifted her head slowly. And my breath caught instantly. She was beautiful in a terrifying way. Not soft beauty. Not human beauty. The kind that felt wrong to look at too long. Silver hair spilled down her shoulders. Her skin looked almost translucent beneath the moonlight. And her eyes. Gods. Her eyes weren't wolf eyes. They were completely silver. No pupil. No white. Just silver. Like living moonlight. Then she looked directly at me. And smiled. Not kindly. Knowingly. As though she had been waiting for me. Kale rose immediately. The softness vanished from his face so fast it frightened me. Now he looked dangerous again. Deadly. The Alpha King everyone feared. Leave. One word. Sharp enough to cut flesh. But I barely heard him. Because the woman chained to the wall whispered my name before I ever spoke hers. Lyra. The cold spread through my body instantly. I had never seen this woman before. Never met her. And yet, she knew me. Kale noticed my reaction immediately. His jaw tightened. Do not speak to her. The woman laughed softly. The sound echoed unnaturally through the tower. Not loud. Not human. Like several voices laughing beneath hers. Then she tilted her head slowly. Studying me. So this is the Luna you chose. Kale stepped between us instantly. Protective. But strangely, it didn't feel like he was protecting me from her. It felt like he was protecting her from me hearing something. The woman's silver eyes moved toward the king. And for the first time since entering the tower, I saw hatred. Pure hatred. Ancient hatred. Does she know what you really are yet? The room went silent. Kale's voice dropped lower than I had ever heard. Enough. But the woman kept staring at me. And suddenly, the chains around her wrists began rattling violently. Not because she moved. Because something beneath the tower was responding to her voice. The floor trembled softly. Dust fell from the ceiling. And somewhere deep below us, something massive growled. My blood turned to ice. Because whatever made that sound was enormous. The woman smiled faintly when she saw my fear. You hear it now. Kale grabbed my arm instantly. Hard enough to hurt. You shouldn't be here. But before he could drag me away, the woman screamed. Not in pain. In warning. The windows exploded inward. Wind roared through the chamber violently. Every torch extinguished at once. Darkness swallowed the room. Then, for one horrifying second, two glowing eyes appeared beneath the cracks in the tower floor. Huge. Silver. Watching us from below. My heartbeat nearly stopped. Because no wolf alive could possibly be that large. The woman's voice echoed through the darkness. Calm. Almost amused. It knows she's here now. Kale's grip on my wrist tightened painfully. And for the first time, I felt fear coming from him. Real fear. Then the Alpha King did something I never imagined possible. He looked at me. Not like a king. Not like an alpha. but like a man standing moments away from disaster. And he whispered, "Lyra, if the chains break tonight, run." The words echoed through the tower long after she said them. I'm his mate. Not my wife. Not a former lover. Mate. The most sacred bond in wolf history. My chest tightened so violently it became difficult to breathe. And the terrifying part wasn't the pain. It was the way Kale looked at her after she said it. Not angry. Not shocked. Defeated. Like a man too exhausted to deny the truth anymore. Rain hammered against the tower windows harder now. The storm outside was getting worse. Or maybe something inside the tower was waking up. I stared at Kale, waiting, begging silently for him to say she was lying, that there was some explanation, some misunderstanding. But the Alpha King remained silent, and silence from Kale was often more dangerous than words. The chained woman watched me carefully, studying every crack forming inside me. Then softly, almost gently, she asked, "Did he ever touch you?" Kale moved instantly. Enough. The tower shook. Actual stone cracked beneath his feet. The force of his alpha voice slammed through the room like thunder. But I never looked away from the woman, because her question had already answered itself. Kale rarely touched me, rarely kissed me, rarely even looked at me for too long. At first I believed he was cold by nature. Now I realized something worse. He had been restraining himself from me. The woman's silver eyes darkened slightly, and then she whispered the sentence that made my blood run cold. He was afraid the bond would notice. My wolf stirred violently, confused, agitated, because mate bonds were living things. They felt betrayal, distance, desire. And suddenly, I understood why Kale vanished every night. He wasn't abandoning me. He was coming here. To her. Always to her. The room became suffocatingly silent. Then, drip. A single drop of blood hit the stone floor. I looked down instantly. The woman's wrists were bleeding again. But the strange part wasn't the blood. It was the chains. The silver restraints were tightening by themselves, digging deeper into her skin, as though reacting to emotion or rage. Kale noticed it too. His expression changed immediately. Fear. Real fear. He stepped toward her carefully. "Stop fighting them." The woman laughed weakly. "I'm not." Every torch in the room flickered violently. And suddenly, the temperature dropped. Cold air swept through the chamber unnaturally fast. My breath fogged in front of me. Then I heard it again. The growling beneath the tower floor. Closer now. Much closer. Something massive moved beneath us. Circling. Listening. Waiting. I stepped backward instinctively. The chained woman turned her silver eyes toward the floor. And smiled. Not happily. Hungrily. "It can smell your fear now, Luna." Kale's voice came instantly. Sharp. Commanding. Do not speak to her. But this time, the woman ignored him completely. Her gaze remained fixed on me. "Has he told you what happens when the West Tower opens?" My throat tightened. Because suddenly, I didn't want the answer. Kale moved between us again. Protective. Desperate. And for the first time since entering the tower, I realized something horrifying. The Alpha King wasn't guarding the woman. He was guarding the kingdom from whatever was beneath us. Then the woman tilted her head slowly and asked the question that shattered the last piece of certainty inside me. "Lyra, have you ever wondered why this castle has no children?" Silence. Heavy. Wrong. Because she was right. In 6 months inside Moonfang Castle, I had never seen a single child. Not servants. Not heirs. Not even infants. An entire kingdom without children. How had I never noticed? Kale's face darkened instantly. "Stop." But the woman continued softly. "No babies survive inside these walls anymore." The tower floor trembled again. Harder this time. A deep cracking sound echoed beneath us. My heart began pounding violently, because something below the tower was moving upward. The chained woman finally looked at Kale again, and for the first time, I saw pity in her silver eyes. Not for herself. For him. Then she whispered, "You waited too long." Kale turned sharply toward the floor beneath us, and whatever he sensed drained the color from his face. The Alpha King grabbed my wrist immediately. Hard. Urgent. We're leaving. Now. But before we reached the door, a deafening roar exploded beneath the tower. The entire chamber lurched violently sideways. Stone cracked open across the floor. And from the darkness below, a gigantic claw burst through the foundation. Black. Rotting. Covered in silver runes. Not a wolf. Not human. Something far older. Something imprisoned. And as the creature beneath the tower inhaled, every torch in the room died instantly. Then a voice echoed from the darkness below us. Ancient. Inhuman. Starving. Mate. The tower fell silent after her confession. Not normal silence. The kind that comes before something terrible remembers your name. Rain lashed violently against the windows as I stared at Kale. My husband. My king. A man the kingdom worshipped like a living god. And suddenly, I could see blood on him. Not physically. Something worse. The kind that never washes away. Kale's face revealed nothing. But his eyes. His eyes had become lethal. The same eyes warriors described moments before executions. The chained woman still held my wrist weakly. Yet somehow, she was the only person in the room who didn't seem afraid. That frightened me most. Then Kale spoke. Quietly. Too quietly. You don't know what you're talking about. The woman smiled faintly. A tired smile. Ancient. Lucian begged you not to kill him. My heartbeat stopped. Lucian. The dead prince. Kale's younger brother. The kingdom mourned him for years. Statues had been built in his honor. Songs written about his sacrifice during the Northern War. But now, the woman in chains was saying the Alpha King murdered him himself. Lightning flashed across the chamber. For one brief second, I saw something horrifying. Kale's hands were shaking. The Alpha King never shook. Never. Not during war. Not during executions. Not even during battle. Yet the mention of his brother made his entire body tense like a wounded animal. Then, a low growl echoed beneath the floor again. Closer now. The cracks in the stone widened slowly. Black mist leaked upward through them. The chained woman looked toward the floor. Listening. As though something underneath the tower was waking with interest. Then she whispered. It remembers that night too. Kale snapped instantly. Stop talking. His alpha voice exploded through the chamber with enough force to split stone. The windows shattered completely. Wind roared through the tower. But the woman only closed her eyes calmly. Like she had survived worse from him before. Much worse. And somehow, that terrified me more than his anger. I stepped backward slowly. Away from both of them. Because suddenly, I no longer knew who the monster in this room truly was. Kale noticed immediately. Pain flickered across his face. Real pain. Lyra. But before he could continue, the woman whispered. Ask him what really happened the night Lucian died. Kale went still. Completely still. And deep down, I think he already knew I was going to ask. My voice barely came out. What happened? Silence. Long. Heavy. Then finally, Kale turned away from me. Not toward the woman. Toward the storm outside the tower windows. As though he couldn't face me while speaking. And when he answered, his voice sounded hollow. Lucian opened the gate. The chained woman laughed softly. Coldly. Tell her the whole truth. The tower trembled again. Dust rained from above. Far beneath us. Something massive dragged itself across stone. Slowly. Patiently. Listening. Kale clenched his jaw. Then finally, he spoke. 20 years ago, something was discovered beneath Moonfang Castle. My pulse quickened instantly. Because every child in the kingdom grew up hearing rumors about tunnels beneath the castle. Buried ruins. Ancient creatures. Cursed wolves. But nobody ever spoke about them openly. Not in front of the royal family. Kale continued slowly. Like every word physically hurt him. The West Tower wasn't built to keep people out. My stomach tightened. It was built to keep something in. The chained woman looked at me carefully. And whispered. Your husband's family made a deal with it. Another silence. Another crack spreads through the tower floor. I suddenly realized the room felt warmer now. Not safer. Hotter. Like something breathing beneath us. Kale's silver eyes darkened. Lucian wanted to free it. The woman interrupted instantly. Lucian wanted to destroy it. Kale turned toward her violently, and for the first time, I saw genuine hatred between them. Not romantic pain. Not heartbreak. War. Centuries of war hidden behind silence. Then the woman looked back at me, and slowly, she lifted the chain around her wrist. The silver restraints burned against her skin instantly. Smoke rose from the wounds. Yet she didn't react. Didn't scream. Didn't flinch. Instead, she showed me the symbol carved into the metal. A royal crest. Moonfang's crest. The royal family had chained her themselves. Not as punishment. As a sacrifice. Then she whispered, "Your king feeds the tower." My blood went cold. Kale moved immediately. Too quickly. He grabbed the woman's throat and slammed her against the wall. The entire chamber shook violently. His eyes glowed monstrously now. Wolf eyes. Predator eyes. Enough. But even choking, the woman smiled. And somehow, that smile looked victorious. Then she forced out one final sentence. Barely audible. Yet it changed everything. Ask him why no servant survives the West Wing for longer than a month. Silence. Absolute silence. Because suddenly, I remembered. The missing servants. The sudden disappearances. The closed funerals. The sealed records. And the strange rule inside Moonfang Castle. Never walk the West Halls after midnight. I slowly turned toward Kale. And for the first time since becoming his Luna, I felt genuine fear standing beside him. Not fear of his anger. Fear of what he might truly be protecting. Then, a loud crack thundered beneath us. The floor split open wider. And from the darkness below, dozens of glowing silver eyes opened at once. Watching. Blinking. Hungry. The chained woman looked down into the abyss beneath the tower. Then back at me. And whispered softly. Almost sadly. "He told you this castle was a kingdom." Another crack split the floor. The creatures below began climbing upward. And the woman finished her sentence. But Moonfang was never a kingdom. The silver eyes beneath us multiplied. Kale slowly stepped in front of me. Protective. Terrified. And the woman whispered the final truth. "It's a prison." The storm outside became violent. Not naturally violent. The kind of storm that feels alive. Thunder shook the West Tower as Kale stood motionless before me. Breathing hard. Eyes glowing silver in the darkness. And suddenly, I understood why the kingdom feared him more than death itself. Because King Kale looked like a man constantly fighting something inside his own body. Something starving. The chained woman watched him carefully. Not with love. Not anymore. With exhaustion. Like she had spent years watching a wound slowly rot. Then softly, she spoke again. "Tell her what you became after Lucian died." Kale's jaw tightened instantly. A dangerous silence filled the chamber. The silver eyes beneath the cracked floor multiplied. More creatures are gathering below. Listening. Waiting. The tower itself groaned softly around us. Ancient stone beginning to fail. But none of that frightened me as much as Kale's expression. Because for the first time, the Alpha King looked cornered. And predators were most dangerous when cornered. I stepped backward slowly. My pulse hammered violently in my ears. "Kale." He looked at me immediately. And gods. The pain in his eyes nearly destroyed me. Because part of him still cared what I thought. Even now. Even after all the lies. Then he whispered. "Lucian opened the lower gate." The woman laughed bitterly. "Because your father ordered innocent wolves sacrificed to it." My stomach dropped. Sacrificed. The word echoed through my head like poison. Kale closed his eyes briefly. As though he was remembering something he desperately wished forgotten. And when he finally spoke again, his voice sounded older. Heavier. The kingdom was dying. Lightning illuminated the chamber. For one brief second, I saw shadows moving beneath the floor cracks. Huge shadows. Crawling upward slowly. Kale continued. Winter lasted 3 years. Crops failed. Entire packs starved. The chained woman stared at him coldly. "So your father fed people to the thing beneath the tower." Silence. Kale didn't deny it. My chest tightened painfully. Because every terrifying rumor about Moonfang Castle suddenly felt real. The missing villagers. The sealed tunnels. The disappearances during blood moons. Not myths. Not stories. History. Then Kale looked directly at me. And for the first time, the king spoke not like a ruler, but like a witness. The creature beneath the castle promised power. A low growl echoed beneath us instantly. Almost pleased. The floor trembled harder. Kale ignored it. Strength. Protection. Long life. Victory in war. The chained woman whispered. And all it wanted in return was blood. The tower went silent again. Too silent. Then Kale said the sentence that made my wolf recoil. My family accepted the bargain. The air left my lungs. Because suddenly, everything made horrifying sense. Moonfang Kingdom never lost wars. Its kings lived unnaturally long. Its enemies vanished mysteriously. The royal bloodline wasn't blessed. It was cursed. The chained woman slowly lifted her eyes toward me. Lucien wanted to end the pact forever. Kale's face darkened instantly. He was naive. He was right. The two of them stared at each other with centuries of hatred hidden beneath silence. Then the woman spoke softly, almost like narration in an old tragedy. Lucien descended into the lower tunnels during the last blood moon. As she spoke, the chamber around us almost faded. And in my mind, I could see it. The dead prince carrying a torch through underground ruins. Ancient symbols carved into black stone. Blood covering the walls. And something massive breathing in the darkness ahead. The woman's voice lowered. He discovered what the kings had been feeding. Another crack split the floor open. One silver eye appeared beneath us. Huge. Unblinking. Watching. The woman continued. And when Lucien tried to destroy the creature, she looked at Kale. His brother stopped him. Kale's breathing became uneven now. The Alpha King was losing control. I could feel it. His wolf was too close to the surface. Too unstable. Then finally, Kale whispered. I didn't mean to kill him. Silence. Heavy. Devastating. The confession settled over the room like death itself. And somehow, the woman didn't look surprised. Only tired. She already knew. Perhaps she had always known. Kale stared at the floor. At the widening darkness beneath us. And slowly, he spoke again. Lucien broke the seal. The silver eyes below blinked together. Dozens of them. Waiting. Hungry. Kale's voice dropped lower. The creature got inside him. My skin turned cold instantly. The woman closed her eyes briefly. Like she hated hearing the memory spoken aloud. Kale continued. It changed him. The tower shook violently now. Stone cracked across the ceiling. Far below, something enormous slammed against metal. Chains. Massive chains. The sound echoed through the entire castle. Kale's breathing became harsher. Lucien begged me to kill him before it fully consumed him. I stared at him in horror. Because suddenly, I didn't know which story was true anymore. Had Kale murdered his brother? Or saved the kingdom from him? Then the chained woman whispered something so quietly. I almost missed it. That's the lie he tells himself to sleep. Kale snapped his head toward her instantly. Pure rage exploded across his face. You watched him transform. The woman's silver eyes darkened. And you enjoyed what happened after. The room froze. Even the growling beneath the floor stopped. Kale looked genuinely horrified now. Not angry. Exposed. The woman slowly turned toward me. And then, she revealed the truth Kale feared most. The creature didn't enter Lucien that night. A deep roar shook the foundation below us. The silver eyes beneath the cracks widened. The woman kept staring directly into my soul. It entered Kale. Silence. Absolute silence. My wolf whimpered painfully inside me. Because deep down, I already believed her. Kale took one slow step backward. Like a man watching his entire life collapse. Then suddenly, the tower bells began ringing. Violently. All at once. Emergency bells. The sound echoed across Moonfang Castle like a funeral warning. Kale's head snapped toward the window instantly. Fear crossed his face. Real fear. Then a guard's scream echoed from somewhere below the tower. Followed by tearing flesh. Then another scream. Then silence. The chained woman slowly lifted her head. Listening carefully. And when she smiled this time, it wasn't human. Too late. Something massive hit the tower doors from below. Once. Twice. The iron walls bent inward. Kale grabbed my arm instantly. Hard. Urgent. Terrified. And the Alpha King whispered the words I never thought I'd hear from him. It got out. The rain swallowed us whole. Cold. Violent. Endless. For several seconds neither of us moved. The forest around Moonfang Castle stood unnaturally still, as though even the trees were listening. Kale remained in front of me, breathing heavily, rain sliding down his face like blood, and suddenly, he didn't look like a king anymore. He looked exhausted, like a man carrying something rotten inside him for far too long. But I couldn't forget what I'd seen. The chains. The creature beneath the tower. The woman called herself his mate. The confession about Lucien. And worst of all, the look on Kale's face when she accused him. Not denial. Guilt. The storm cracked open above us. Thunder rolled across the mountains. Then somewhere far behind the trees, a howl echoed. Low. Deep. Wrong. Every hair on my body rose instantly, because it wasn't a wolf howl. It sounded almost human. Kale heard it too. His expression changed immediately. Alert. Predatory. Afraid. Then another howl answered from deeper within the forest. Then another. Closer. Closing in. Kale stepped toward me instantly. You need to come back. I laughed bitterly through tears. Back to what? My voice cracked. Your prison. Pain crossed his face again. Real pain. But before he could answer, the forest behind him moved. Not branches. Something massive. Watching us from the darkness between the trees. Kale slowly turned. His body immediately shifted into an attack position. Shoulders tense. Claws partially extending. Wolf instincts surfacing. And suddenly, I realized something horrifying. The Alpha King wasn't hunting the creature anymore. The creature was hunting him. The rain intensified. Then, a shape appeared briefly between the trees. Tall. Distorted. Too thin to be a wolf. Too large to be human. Silver eyes glowing in the darkness. My breath caught instantly, because the thing moved strangely. Its limbs bent wrong, like broken bones healing incorrectly. Kale stepped in front of me without hesitation. Protective. Automatic. Then he whispered something under his breath. Not to me. To himself. It followed her scent. My pulse quickened. Her. The chained woman. Then suddenly, the creature vanished. No sound. No footsteps. Gone. The silence afterward was worse, because predators went quiet right before attacking. Kale grabbed my wrist immediately. Run when I tell you. Fear tightened inside my chest. What is that thing? Kale didn't answer immediately, and somehow, that terrified me more. Then finally, he whispered. One of the failed ones. The words hit me like ice. Failed. Meaning there were others. My stomach turned violently. Then the creature screamed. Not growled. Screamed. A sound filled with agony so deep it barely sounded alive anymore. The trees exploded apart. And suddenly, it lunged out of the darkness. Massive claws. Rotting black fur. Silver veins glowing beneath torn flesh. Its face. God's. Its face still looked partly human. A royal guard. Or what used to be one. Kale shoved me backward instantly as the creature collided with him. The impact cracked nearby trees in half. Both monsters disappeared into the darkness together. Snarling. Tears. Violent. I stumbled backward through the mud, struggling to breathe. Then I heard Kale roar. Not human. Not a wolf. Something ancient beneath both. The forest shook violently. Birds exploded from the trees overhead. And for one terrifying second, silver light burst through the woods. Moonlight. But wrong. Corrupted. I saw Kale clearly then. Half-shifted. Claws buried deep inside the creature's chest. Silver-black veins crawling beneath his skin. His eyes glowing unnaturally bright. And the creature. I was laughing. Actually laughing. Blood spilled from its mouth as it stared directly at me. Then it whispered. He's changing faster now. Kale tore its throat open instantly. But even dying, the creature smiled. Its body collapsed into the mud, twitching. rotting rapidly before my eyes, like something unnatural finally losing control of its form. Kale remained frozen over the corpse, breathing heavily, too heavy. Then slowly, he looked down at his own hands, and horror crossed his face, because the black veins beneath his skin weren't disappearing anymore. They were spreading. My wolf whimpered painfully inside me. Kale noticed immediately, and the look in his eyes nearly destroyed me, because beneath all the fear, all the secrets, all the lies, he was terrified of one thing: hurting me. Then he took one slow step backward, away from me, not closer, away. Rain poured harder around us. The storm is almost deafening now. Then Kale said something so quietly, I barely heard it. You need to leave Moonfang before the next blood moon. The cold spread through my entire body, because there was only one reason an Alpha King would abandon his Luna. He believed he was going to become something worse than death. Then suddenly, a horn echoed from the castle walls. Once, twice, 3 times. Emergency signals. But not for war. For breach. Kale's face went pale instantly. He turned toward the distant castle, and whatever he sensed terrified him. Then the forest behind us erupted with howls. Not one, dozens, all answering each other, coming closer, surrounding us. Kale looked back at me slowly, and for the first time since I met him, the Alpha King sounded helpless. They're awake. The room felt colder the moment she said it. The first Luna. Not a title. Not a legend. A warning. Moonfang Castle stood silent around us, but not peacefully. The silence felt strained, like the entire kingdom was holding its breath. I stared at the woman standing beside my bed. No chains. No wounds. No weakness. 3 nights ago she could barely stand. Now, power rolled off her in waves. Ancient power. The kind that made wolves kneel instinctively. My wolf lowered itself inside me immediately. Not from fear. Recognition. Submission. And that terrified me more than anything. Because wolves only bowed to one thing naturally. Royal blood blessed by the moon goddess herself. The first Luna watched my reaction carefully. Then she walked toward the balcony slowly. Moonlight poured across her silver hair like liquid. And suddenly, she no longer looked human at all. She looked eternal. Outside the chamber windows, chaos consumed the kingdom. I could hear it. War horns. Screaming guards. The sound of distant fighting. Something was moving through Moonfang Castle tonight. Something fast. Something killing. And somehow, the woman standing before me remained completely calm. Then she whispered, He's losing control faster than I expected. My stomach tightened instantly. Kale. She meant Kale. I stepped backward carefully. What are you? The first Luna smiled faintly. Sadness touched her silver eyes. That is the wrong question. The torches inside my room flickered violently. Not from the wind. From her. The shadows across the walls began stretching unnaturally long, moving slowly behind her like living things. Then she looked directly at me and asked, Do you know why the moon goddess stopped blessing children in this kingdom? My pulse quickened. Because she was right. No children survived in Moonfang anymore. Not for years. Stillbirths. Disappearances. Illness. The kingdom called it a curse. But suddenly, I knew it wasn't random. The first Luna moved closer slowly. Her bare feet made no sound against the stone floor. Every generation, the creature beneath the castle grows stronger. A scream echoed somewhere deep below us, followed by tearing flesh. I flinched instinctively. She didn't. Then she continued softly. And every generation the royal bloodline weakens. Lightning illuminated the chamber. And for one horrifying second, I saw another woman standing behind her reflection in the window. A shadow wearing a crown of bones. I spun around instantly. Nothing. But when I looked back, the first Luna was watching me carefully, almost knowingly. You're beginning to see them now. The cold spread through my body. See who? Silence. Then, a knock sounded at my chamber door. 3 slow knocks. My breath caught instantly. Because nobody knocked on Luna's chamber at this hour. Especially not during a kingdom-wide panic. The first Luna's expression darkened slightly. Don't open it. Another knock echoed, harder this time. Then, Kale's voice. Lyra. Relief hit me instantly, but the first Luna didn't move. I didn't relax. Instead, she whispered, "Listen carefully." My heart pounded. Outside the door, Kale spoke again. "Open the door." Something felt wrong immediately. Not his voice. The rhythm. Kale never repeated himself. Never knocked twice. And suddenly, I realized the first Luna was staring at the floor beneath the door. At the shadow underneath it. Or rather, the lack of one. My blood turned to ice. Because whoever stood outside my room wasn't casting a shadow. The first Luna whispered, "That isn't your king." The knocking stopped instantly. Silence filled the chamber. Heavy. Listening to silence. Then slowly, something scratched across the outside of the door. Claws. Long claws. Dragging downward through wood. My wolf recoiled violently inside me. And then, Kale's voice spoke again. But this time, multiple voices echoed beneath it. Layered together unnaturally. "Let me in." The door handle began turning slowly. The first Luna finally moved. Fast. Far too fast for human eyes. Suddenly she stood directly in front of me. Her silver eyes are glowing brilliantly now. Ancient symbols burned beneath her skin. Moon symbols. The same runes carved into the chains that once held her. Then she whispered, "He found you." My breathing shattered. "Who?" The chamber door bent inward violently. The wood cracked. The entire room shook. And outside, something growled. Not like an animal. Like hunger itself. Then the first Luna finally revealed the truth Kale had been hiding from the kingdom for generations. The creature beneath the tower doesn't only consume flesh. Another violent slam hit the door. Cracks spread across the wood instantly. The first Luna looked directly into my eyes. And her voice dropped into something ancient. Something terrifying. It learns the voices of the people it eats. The door exploded inward. A royal guard stumbled into the room. At least, part of him was still a guard. His armor was drenched in blood. His jaw hung unnaturally loose. Silver-black veins crawled beneath his skin. And his eyes. Gods. His eyes looked exactly like Kale's. The creature smiled at me using the dead guard's face. Then I spoke in my husband's voice. Perfectly. "Lyra." The first Luna stood motionless beneath the moonlight. Silver fire danced across her skin. Not burning her. Protecting her. Outside the chamber windows, Moonfang Castle was collapsing into chaos. Warriors screamed below. Steel clashed against claws. The emergency bells continued ringing across the kingdom like funeral hymns. And somewhere deep beneath the castle, something enormous was awake. Fully awake. The first Luna closed her eyes slowly, as though listening to it breathe beneath the earth. Then she whispered, "It's stronger than before." Fear tightened inside my chest, because if she was afraid, then whatever lived beneath Moonfang Castle was worse than I imagined. I stepped closer carefully. "Why didn't you leave?" Her silver eyes opened again. Ancient sadness filled them. "Because Kale would have died centuries ago without me." My heartbeat stumbled. Centuries. Not years. Not generations. Centuries. The realization hit me slowly. Wrongly. Kale wasn't simply powerful. He wasn't simply cursed. Something inside him had kept him alive far longer than nature allowed. And suddenly, the way people spoke about the Alpha King made horrifying sense. The same face in old paintings. The same silver eyes in portraits older than entire kingdoms. Moonfang historians called it an artistic tradition. But now, I understood the truth. The Alpha King barely aged. Because the thing beneath the castle had marked his bloodline forever. Then the first Luna walked toward an ancient mirror standing beside the balcony doors. The glass was cracked from top to bottom. And strangely, her reflection didn't appear correctly. I saw multiple versions of her standing there. One covered in blood. One wearing a crown of bones. One with completely black eyes. The room suddenly felt much colder. Then she spoke softly, like someone narrating an old tragedy. The creature beneath the tower was never meant to exist in this world. Thunder exploded outside. The mirror cracked a little more. I swallowed hard. What is it? The first Luna remained silent for several seconds. And somehow, That silence felt deliberate, as though even naming the creature carried danger. Then finally, she whispered, "A forgotten god." The torches in the chamber extinguished instantly. Darkness swallowed the room. My wolf recoiled violently inside me, not from fear. Instinct. The kind prey feels before standing before something ancient enough to erase kingdoms. Then, the castle shook. Hard. Dust fell from the ceiling. Far below us people screamed. Not battle screams. Panic. The first Luna turned toward the floor slowly, listening. Then her expression changed. For the first time since meeting her, I saw a genuine alarm. No. Another violent tremor split through the castle. The walls groaned. And suddenly, blood began dripping from the ceiling. Fresh blood. Warm. My breathing stopped. Because the blood wasn't falling randomly. It formed lines across the stone floor. Symbols. Ancient symbols. The same runes carved into the chains that once restrained the first Luna. Only now, they were appearing by themselves. Alive. Moving. The first Luna stared at them in horror. He opened the lower gate. My stomach dropped instantly. Kale. She looked at me sharply. And for the first time, anger flashed across her face. No. Silence. Then softly, almost fearfully, she whispered, "Lucian." The room froze. Impossible. Lucian was dead. Kale killed him. Didn't he? But before I could speak, the mirror beside the balcony shattered violently. Glass exploded across the room. And suddenly, a figure stood outside the balcony doors. Tall. Motionless. Drenched in rain. My heartbeat nearly stopped. Because it was Kale. Or at least, something wearing Kale's face. His silver eyes glowed unnaturally bright. Black veins spread across his throat. And his smile. Gods. Kale never smiled like that. The first Luna stepped in front of me instantly. Protective. Terrified. Then the thing outside the balcony lifted one clawed hand slowly. And scratched 3 marks across the glass door. The exact same scratches I'd seen earlier beside my bed. My wolf whimpered painfully. Because the scent coming from the creature looked like Kale. But smelled wrong. Rotten. Ancient. Hungry. Then it spoke. In Kale's voice. Perfectly. "You should have stayed in the tower." The first Luna's power exploded instantly. Silver light burst across the chamber. The balcony doors shattered outward violently. The creature lunged inside. Fast enough to blur. But the first Luna caught its throat midair. The impact cracked the stone wall behind them. And suddenly, the creature screamed. Not in Kale's voice anymore. Hundreds of voices screamed together beneath it. Men. Women. Children. Every victim it had ever consumed. My blood turned to ice. Because I finally understood. The creature beneath Moonfang Castle wasn't creating monsters. It was wearing them. Using them. Like skin. The first Luna slammed the thing against the floor violently. Its body twisted unnaturally. Bones cracking backward. Its face flickers rapidly between different people. Royal guards. Servants. Dead wolves. Then, Lucian. I gasped. Because for one brief second, the creature wore the dead prince's face perfectly. And when it smiled, the first Luna froze. Just for a second. But that second was enough. The creature slammed its claws into her stomach. Silver blood exploded across the chamber floor. The first Luna staggered backward. Weakness flashed across her face for the first time. The creature rose slowly, laughing. Its body continues to shift between stolen faces. Then finally, it settled back into Kale's appearance and looked directly at me. "Do you know what your husband fears most, little Luna?" The first Luna grabbed my arm instantly. Urgent. Desperate. Don't listen to it. But the creature smiled wider and whispered the sentence that shattered the last illusion I had left. "He isn't afraid of becoming a monster." Silence. Heavy. Deadly. Then the creature's silver eyes darkened into blackness. And it finished softly. Almost lovingly. "He's afraid he already is one." The blood moon hung over Moonfang Kingdom like an open wound. Red. Massive. Watching. Fire spread across the castle walls as rogue wolves tore through the kingdom below. The air smelled of ash, silver, and death. Warriors screamed beneath collapsing towers. Children cried from hidden chambers underground. And above it all, the Alpha King stood in the center of the battlefield, shaking violently. Kale's body twisted unnaturally as the curse consumed him completely. Bones cracked beneath his skin. Black veins spread across his throat like living shadows. His claws tore through stone every time he tried to hold himself together. But the terrifying part wasn't the transformation. It was the sound he made while fighting it. Pain. Real pain. The kind of pain that comes from a man desperately trying not to become something worse than death. The kingdom watched in horror. Because every legend about the Moonfang bloodline was finally coming true. Their kings were never chosen by the moon goddess. They were chosen by the thing beneath the tower. And now, it was collecting what belonged to it. The first Luna stepped forward slowly through the burning battlefield. Weak. Dying. Silver blood stains her dress. Yet somehow, still willing to save him. Even after centuries of suffering. Even after chains. Even after betrayal. That was when I understood the cruelest truth of all. The first Luna had never stayed because she loved the kings. She stayed because if she left, entire kingdoms died. Then Kale looked at her and screamed, not in rage, in terror. Don't touch me. The force of his voice shattered the ground beneath him. Warriors staggered backward. Several collapsed entirely. Because the thing inside Kale was no longer hiding. It was surfacing. His silver eyes darkened into black. Then silver again. Flickering violently between man and monster. The first Luna stopped walking. And for the first time, she looked tired. Not physically. Eternally tired. Then she whispered something almost nobody heard over the screams and fire. It finally chose him completely. My heart stopped. Because her voice sounded hopeless. As if even she no longer believed Kale could survive this. Then suddenly, Kale's body jerked violently backward. A roar exploded from his throat. Not a wolf. Not human. Ancient. The exact same roar I had heard beneath the West Tower. The same sound that haunted the castle walls. The same sound whispered about in forbidden records buried beneath Moonfang. And then, something moved beneath Kale's skin. The black veins pulsed upward across his face. Toward his eyes. Toward his mouth. Like another creature was trying to crawl out of him from the inside. The warriors fled immediately. Some dropped their weapons entirely. Others fell to their knees praying. Because standing before them was no longer an Alpha King. It was a vessel. And suddenly, I understood why Kale feared himself more than death. Then the creature inside him spoke. Using Kale's mouth. But not Kale's voice. Hundreds of voices layered together. At last, the battlefield froze. Even the rogue wolves stopped moving. Because the thing wearing Kale's body had awakened fully. Then slowly, it looked at me. And smiled. My wolf recoiled instantly. Not from hatred. Recognition. The creature knew me. Then it whispered. You smell like her. The first Luna moved instantly. Silver light exploded around her. Ancient moon symbols burned across the battlefield. The creature inside Kale snarled violently. Like an animal seeing its jailer. Then the first Luna spoke with terrifying authority. Leave him. The ground beneath them cracked open. Moonlight and darkness collided violently in the center of the battlefield. And for one brief second, I saw it. The thing inside Kale. Not fully. Just enough. A gigantic shape moving beneath his skin. Too large. Too old. Eyes opening in impossible places. Watching from inside him. Hungry. Then Kale screamed again. This time in his own voice. Lyra, run. Pain tore through me. Because beneath the curse. Beneath the monster. Kale was still there. Still fighting. Still trying to protect me. Even now. Then the first Luna lifted one trembling hand toward him. Preparing to absorb the curse again. Preparing to sacrifice herself. Forever. And suddenly, I couldn't let her do it. Not again. Not after centuries. Not after watching Kale destroy himself trying to resist it. I stepped forward. The first Luna turned sharply. Fear crossed her face instantly. No. But I kept walking. Toward the monster. Toward Kale. Toward the thing that had haunted Moonfang for generations. The battlefield watched in silence. Fire crackled around us. Ash fell from the blood-red sky, and Kale looked at me like a dying man, terrified, not to become a monster, of touching me while he was one. Then he whispered one final time, "Please." His voice broke. "Don't come closer." But I did, because somewhere beneath all the darkness, I still believed he was there. My wolf rose fully beneath my skin, not submissive, not afraid, chosen. The mate bond ignited violently between us. Silver light burst outward across the battlefield. The creature inside Kale roared instantly, angry, threatened. The darkness beneath his skin writhed violently now, trying to hold him, trying to consume him completely. But then, Kale looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time since our marriage, there were no lies left in his eyes, only love, painful, terrified, human love, the kind born too late. Then he collapsed to his knees screaming. The creature fought viciously inside him. The black veins cracked apart beneath his skin. Smoke poured from his mouth. The ground beneath the battlefield split open violently. And from deep below Moonfang Castle, something screamed. Not Kale, the forgotten god beneath the tower. The creature realized it was losing him. The mate bond burned brighter. Not forced, not fated, chosen. That was why it worked. Because love freely chosen terrified ancient darkness more than chains ever could. Kale's claws dug into the earth as the curse tore itself out of him. Black smoke exploded upward into the sky. And suddenly, the forgotten god screamed my name. The voice shook the kingdom. The castle walls cracked. The blood moon above us darkened completely. Then silence fell. Heavy, absolute silence. Kale collapsed forward into my arms. Human again. Weak. Breathing. Alive. The first Luna stared at us in stunned silence, as though she had just witnessed something impossible. Then slowly, she smiled. A real smile this time. Small. Peaceful. And for the first time since meeting her, she looked free. The fires across Moonfang slowly began dying. The rogue wolves retreated into the darkness. And somewhere beneath the kingdom, the forgotten god went quiet. Not dead. Sleeping. Waiting. Weeks later, the West Tower stood abandoned. No chains. No guards. No screams in the night. Kale no longer disappeared after midnight. No more blood beneath his fingernails. No more shadows behind his eyes. And yet, sometimes I still wake up during storms, because deep inside Moonfang Castle, I could still hear something breathing beneath the stone. Waiting. Watching. The first Luna vanished before sunrise without saying goodbye. But she left one final message carved into the tower wall. Love can break curses, but broken gods never truly die. Nobody spoke about the words afterward. Not publicly. Moonfang Kingdom tried to rebuild. I tried to forget. But kingdoms built on buried horrors never stay peaceful for long. And 3 weeks later, the castle gates opened at midnight. The guards found no messenger waiting outside. No horses. No footprints. Only a silver crown covered in fresh blood resting in the snow. Alongside a single black letter sealed with the royal crest of Moonfang. Kale opened it himself. And for the first time since the curse broke, fear returned to the Alpha King's face. I looked over his shoulder slowly, and my blood turned cold, because the message contained only 7 words. The first Luna is dead. He found us. Then beneath the sentence, someone had drawn a symbol in blood. A giant eye. Open. Watching. The exact same eye I had once seen staring up at us. From beneath the West Tower. End.